All right, all right, all right. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. This is Tyler James, and I have a special stream for you all tonight. We're doing a pop-up comic book creator live mastermind session tonight. And on this session, it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are wondering what exactly a mastermind session is, a mastermind is a group that offers a combination of brainstorming, education, peer accountability, support. It's done in a group setting, and usually masterminds are there to help you sharpen your business, your creative, and your personal skills. Now, masterminds are found in all different areas of life and all different areas of business. But what's unique about the mastermind sessions I run is that we have all comic book creators in these mastermind sessions. And masterminds are really there to help you achieve success. And often, what you'll find in these mastermind sessions is that different creators are going to have different problems, different challenges. And many of the creators that are in these sessions are either going through those challenges right now, have gone through those in the past, or have been thinking about those things and are looking to help with those solutions on that. And so we're really excited to having a example of a mastermind session tonight for you. Now, what is a little bit special about tonight's session is that this is actually a pop-up mastermind. What's a pop-up mastermind? Well, it's a one-time event. The creators in this group, often in a pop-up mastermind, they don't necessarily know each other very well. And yet you will find that these groups, because we have a common interest, because we're all comic book creators and dealing with similar challenges, that these groups really gel really quickly just in this session, and they end up being highly valuable and a lot of fun. And so I'm excited to be facilitating this group it's a group of creators that this particular group of 5 awesome creators and myself has never been together just in one little session. And so I'm excited to see what comes from it. Now, I have had a lot of experience running mastermind groups. I run a mastermind called the ComixLaunch Mastermind, which is a comic book creator mastermind that is more ongoing. If you are interested in potentially getting into a mastermind group for yourself, that would be an ongoing group of creators that meet consistently on a regular basis for a longer stretch of time. Definitely go over to comixlaunch.com/mastermind and check out and get on the mastermind interest list. I'll be forming and reforming new groups for the 2023 Comics Launch Mastermind in December, and those groups will start meeting in January of the new year. So if you're interested, comixlaunch.com/mastermind. Now, running comic creator mastermind groups is like the most rewarding and fun thing that I do. And so I'm excited to be running one tonight with a new batch of creators. And so let's introduce the group that I have for you today. On today's Comics Launch Mastermind Roundtable, we have Karla Medrano, who is a comic book writer. We have Michael Dean, who is a comic creator, podcaster, and filmmaker. We have Tom Levine, who's a novelist and comic book writer, Patrick Kellner, who's a comic book writer, and Travis Gibb, who is a comic book writer. So a lot of comic book writers in the house tonight, but a lot of creativity, collective talents, Kickstarter experience, and just across the board, people that have been creating things for a long time. And so there's a lot of collective expertise that will be in this group tonight. This group will be facilitated by me, Tyler James. I'm the publisher of ComixTribe and the founder of ComixLaunch, and I really enjoy running these sessions, and I always get something from them myself as well. So I'm going to give everyone a little bit of chance to introduce themselves in just a moment, a little bit more, but the bulk of the sessions tonight will be Hotseats. And the way Hotseats work and the way I run them for these mastermind sessions, creator is going to have their turn on the hot seat. And I structure hot seats in parts. The first part will just run about a minute, and this is where the creator is going to present the issue or topic or challenge that is on their mind related to their creative business. And so each of these creators were nice enough to bring a real topic that is something that they're struggling with, or at least want to get some outside eyeballs and some outside brain power on. The second part of the hot seat is that we're going to discuss and clarify for a couple of minutes. Rarely is the topic or the question that the creator presents going to be perfectly encapsulated for everyone at this table. And so I always find before you start throwing out advice is that it's always good to ask some probing questions, some clarifying questions to the creators to get to know, to dig a little bit deeper. There's usually a tendency to want to rush in and start giving advice, but that's less effective without this clarifying question step. And so we'll encourage creators to ask a few clarifying questions so we really get to the bottom of the issue. The third step is going to be solving. And this is where we're going to ask the creator to step back, that brings the topic to the table, to step back a little bit and just do some listening. And we're going to try to solicit some of the expertise from the creators in this room on just what solutions, ideas, things that come up that might be able to help. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to come back to the creator for a little bit of a commitment. And we're going to ask the creator just to share what ideas or solutions resonated with them and what, if any, new actions he or she is willing to commit to doing as a result of just being in this session. So these will be relatively quick. We'll go from one to the next, and we'll try to get through some really great and valuable topics today. At the end of the session, I always like to wrap these sessions by asking creators for their top takeaway or insight from participating in the session. It might be something related to their issue, or it might be another creator's issues, but it'll help finish strong and encapsulate this thing on a high note. And we'll also give creators the opportunity to share where they can best be found and followed online, the cool projects that they're working on, and where you can follow up with them as well if you want to know more. And for those that are watching this live or are going to be catching the replay, feel free to add your insights in the comments wherever you're watching this from, as you may have some thoughts or some advice or experience that could add to the conversation. I'll be keeping most of my focus on the creators that are in this group, and we'll try to be a tightness with this group, and so I won't be paying a ton of attention while we are live to the comment stream, but we can always come back to the comments afterwards, and if there's good advice, we want to get it from any angle that we can. All right. We appreciate you all tuning in. This is going to be fun. And again, if you like what you see here, if you like the idea and you want to get into some hot seats on a regular basis and also give back to other creators, do check out the ComixLaunch Mastermind. We will be re-enrolling later in December, so for the new year. So definitely check that out. All right. So with that said, we're going to get this thing started, and I am excited to be kicking things off with Karla on this one. Karla, would you start by just giving a short, just telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you create, and then we will get into your topic.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tyler, for inviting me to this session tonight, and I'm really happy to be in the company of such wonderful creators. So thank you. So I'm a wife, a mama, a nurse by day, and a creator by night. So about a couple of years ago, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. A couple of years ago, I saw a really amazing movie that kind of sprung me into this world of the comic book world, and that was Black Panther, specifically Chadwick Boseman in his performance. So I started reading some comic books. I picked up my first, I think it was Wonder Woman, I picked up from the local comic book store. And I really didn't know what I was really getting into. But the more I started reading these books, I was like, wow, this is fun. This is a really great genre that hasn't really been, people like me didn't know anything about until the Marvel movies started coming out. So that's how I got into comic books. And so I decided to turn the novel that I was writing into a comic book because it just was more fun that way. So that's how I kind of got into this whole world.
Awesome. And you have a project on Kickstarter right now. That's right, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So my first comic book series is called Luna, The Awakening. And right now we're doing some crowdfunding on Kickstarter. So hopefully later you'll be able to share that link with everyone. But yeah, I'm really excited. We were, thanks to the tips from the program, Tyler, I was able to implement a lot of those tips, and we were successfully funded within 2 hours. So, and now we're
Awesome.
just kind of building on that momentum. So it's a little challenging though. This third week, this
Yeah.
second week is really challenging, but we're going. We're going. So
Awesome. Awesome. So, Karla, you had a really good topic that I think that a lot of creators that are like you, sort of first book out in the world now, have struggled with. Can you tell us, talk a little bit about your topic and your challenge?
yes, yes. So I struggle with imposter syndrome. So of course, being a nurse, I have to get the formal definition. So the definition of imposter syndrome is it involves the feelings of self-doubt and personal incompetence that persist despite education, experience, and accomplishments. So when it comes to this feeling of imposter syndrome, the danger in that is that you might work yourself harder, and you're more harder on yourself because you thinking you're trying to rise, compare yourself to other people and rise to the occasion. And when really no one probably is looking at you like that, but we put ourselves under that microscope. And so for me, taking that into the comic book world, I do have moments of self-doubt because I'm new to this. I'm very new to all of this. And like I said before, I didn't start reading the comic books until a few years ago. And I was actually one of the people that came from the movies to the comic book world. So I'm like even more of an imposter because the movies do not follow the comic books like at all. So but again, I fell in love with comic books. But how my biggest issue now is how do I turn this love of comic books and then also this brand I'm trying to build, how do I find a place for myself in this industry? And especially being a woman, and then especially being of color, there's there is a place for me. But I'm how do I communicate that? How do I find my place? And how do I avoid comparing myself to other people and other people's accomplishments? So that's what I'm struggling with right now.
Great. Who has clarifying question for Karla?
I have one.
Go ahead.
You'd been asking about you were talking about how you'd been working on your novel before you swapped over to comics. Had you been writing novels in the past, or was this your first novel?
So I've always been a writer. I just never finished anything. So this
Yeah,
this
same.
this particular novel, I think the Black Panther, every I don't have to explain it. We all know what Black Panther did to the culture. It just motivated me to finally just stick to it. So this story has been in my mind for many, many years. So I just finally decided I was going to put it down on paper. But when I saw that the comic books and how you can illustrate your concepts and your in the storyline and the plot line and the characters, and you can give them superpowers, I was like, this is the way to go. So I've always been a writer. I've always read. I'm a blurred. Like I've always loved to write, but I just never finished anything. And stories are always living in my head. Like I came up with the whole story today. So I've always been a writer. I'm not new to writing. It's just I'm just new to the comic book side of things. If that makes sense.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any like certain aspect that draws your attention to that more than any, like the writing portion or the finished product, or a certain piece of inexperience that you have that you're not certain about how to work out?
I think the biggest thing for me is when I read my comic book, like the issue number one, it's not the same as other people's comic books. So like, the comic books that I've been reading, there's like an action sequence every other page. Someone's getting beat up, somebody's getting turned to ice, somebody's drowning, and then superhero comes. But my story reads more of it's a lot slower. And so I'm like, wow, is this really is this really going to be good? Is this really what people really want? And so, but then like when I was looking at your stuff today, like all of your stuff, I was like, wow, this is different too. This is not like the typical Marvel, comic book. So maybe I am okay. So that's one thing I'm discovering too, is that there's so many different ways to write within the genre. And that's what, that's what I love. And that's what I'm discovering. But I still, have moments where I'm like, well, are people really going to like this? Is this, when they open up a comic book, do they really want to see this and read this? So, but I love the diversity in the comic book world. I love how you can take a character and do a lot of things that you can't do writing a novel. So I like the diversity, which is why, I want to get better at, I want to find a place for myself in this industry. So,
can I ask, Karla, are there any ways that you see that these feelings or imposter syndrome are holding you back from taking an action, or what do you fear that it's preventing you from doing or achieving or having if you don't get rid of this thing?
Well, building a community, because what's been preventing me from showing my face on social is that I feel like I'm not an authority on certain plot lines and certain, like, I don't have an opinion. I shouldn't have an opinion about, why isn't Storm in Wakanda forever? Like, why, there's certain things that I wonder, but I'm like, well, maybe that's supposed to be that way. And maybe if I get on here and talk about my opinion about this movie or give my review about this movie, I will look dumb and I won't build a community. So I'm afraid of looking dumb. I'm afraid of being trolled in the comments. So I think the biggest issue I have is that's what's stopping me from getting myself out there and building the community that I know there's other people out there like me that's waiting to get in the comic book world, wants to know more, but they feel intimidated because they're, often when you see people on Instagram or TikTok, it's people that have been reading comic books for years. So like, I feel like if I don't get past this, then I'm going to prevent that community building that I need in order to grow a brand.
Okay, great. Any more questions for Karla before we get into and share some feedback? Tom, you had one, and then we'll go to Travis. Tom first.
Yeah, a couple. And this might actually be a question for you, Tyler, but I'll
Well, these are for Karla right now, so we'll get
okay.
Karla.
I just want to clarify, when you talk about the industry, what industry you're talking about, because to me, and I'm curious what others think, there's a Kickstarter comic book industry, and then there's your big 3 publisher type thing, and I think those are 2 very distinct things, and the communities, I think, are very different in those. So when you use the word industry, what are you thinking?
That's a good question. I didn't really think about it like that. I more broadly, in general, the comic book industry, but I didn't really think about it that it's broken down into different groups, which makes sense. But I'm talking more about just the Marvel, DC, indie, all of it smashed together. So maybe I should break it up and focus on one thing.
And Travis, you had a question?
Travis is on mute still.
Travis, you're on mute, bub.
I know, but I was talking so great with my hands. You couldn't translate? Come on. So is your biggest concern, let me ask you to clarify your biggest concern, if you say something about Marvel, DC, someone's going to be more educated for you, so therefore your opinion values less. Is that your major concern?
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying for us, Karla. I'm going to ask Karla just to sit back a sec because I want to go around the horn a little bit and just share some thoughts on this. But before I do that, like, show of hands, if you've ever had imposter syndrome as a creator here. Has anyone ever felt that? You know, for me, like the first time I went to New York Comic Con and I had a pro badge that I was shocked that I was able to like get because I had like one little credit to my name. Yeah, definitely it was rampant. But so Karla, one of the things that I hope just seeing that, knowing that you're on your first book and some of these creators are, you know, have been at this for a while, is that feeling is not uncommon, and it also didn't stop any of us here. Okay. I want to let's start with Patrick. What comes to mind? What ideas, solutions, or thoughts around battling imposter syndrome do you have?
Well, I think as it pertains to like the work that you're doing and wondering whether or not it's got a spot to fit in, I think you got to recognize that it's your own unique voice that you're putting out there. And if it sounded like everybody else's, it wouldn't be any good. Like, so you need to have your own unique style, your own unique voice, you know, the stories that you're telling. As far as the community thing, I think, you know, it's normal that you've only been reading comics for a little bit. So maybe you feel a little out of place, out of your lane to talk too much about it. And I think that that's going to kind of wane as you stay in the industry, stay in the community yourself, keep reading and keep learning. And I think you're going to know when you're not talking out of turn and when to say something that makes sense to the community around you. So, you know, I think as long as you don't rush out there too quick and start telling everybody how you know everything works, and it's, you know, as a relative new person, I think that'll kind of come together for you. I think that's just going to be time. Nobody picks up something new and is an expert at it tomorrow. And I think all of us too, like I've been reading comics for a long time, but so much of my comic reading was like just in the Marvel or the X-Men or the Wolverine lane. So even though I've got 30 years of comics reading, it's a very, you know, narrow lane of knowledge that I have. And I can talk to other people and they start talking about books and I'm like, I'm out on that. I don't know anything about that creator or that publisher. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of time. Just stick with it, keep learning, keep expanding your knowledge base, and your confidence is going to come to you through the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Travis, what came to you?
So I got a lot. So the first thing that I want to say is you're exactly what comics need. So don't feel that you're lesser in that. Like comics need new voices. That's the most important thing. As someone who's the exact opposite, I have read everything. I can probably tell you about every comic, literally, and I'm not exaggerating. I read an enormous amount of comics in the indie market, in the Marvel, DC, all of it, all the time. I'm one of those jerks sometimes. Like, I apologize that we're toxic sometimes. It's because we love this industry so much, right? Much like you're feeling that love. And so that happened. So one, your voice, and not only am I going to say that your voice is solely wanted and needed, it's what they're looking for. Like up and coming writers like myself, I have a harder time breaking in because of that stuff. They don't want to hire people who are extremely educated in comics. They want to get people in the film industry or who's written a novel. A lot of the new up and comers, mainstream artists worked in other fields and were elevated up to comics to be the writers. So you look at Marvel, and I can tell you the big writers from Marvel and DC right now didn't work in that field and got brought over. So which is really cool. Scott Snyder only did 5 books. He didn't even do a comic book before he started writing Batman. And he's like synopsis with Batman right now. I can name a whole bunch. Matthew Rosenberg worked in the music industry. He was doing following punk rock bands, and he's doing a bunch of things for Marvel and DC right now. The list goes on and on. So that should not be your thing. In fact, I think that should be used. If I was you, use it as a strength. I want to build a community of new readers who want to learn these things together, maybe even have a book club that kind of builds that community. Because I think that could be used as an amazing strength that I could never tap into, that you have that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's something that I've been preaching on the podcast for forever, is that like every perceived weakness can be flipped and turned into a strength and an opportunity. And the fact that, you are in the position that you're in, well, guess what? There's a lot of people actually that haven't. I mean, you've got a funded Kickstarter on Kickstarter right now. Most people on planet Earth still haven't even done that. So even if you are not the expert on all things, there are plenty of people out there that you have learned so much in this journey to get this vision from your head out into the, like, not just created, but now created and to the market. Like, so don't be shy about sharing that stuff. And it's okay if there are other experts out there teaching the same stuff. Not everybody can learn, like, not everyone's voice and not every teacher, like, there are some people that are going to learn better from someone that has a different voice, a different perspective, and there's a lot of different ways that like, I'm just seeing like a lot of cool stories that you can share that you are expert on. Like, how do you do this while also working a demanding job like a nurse, or raising kids, or starting late? Like, and I love Travis's idea about having a book club. Is like, all right, hey, I'm getting into this comics thing after Black Panther. Here's my reading list, and sharing that, and like, this all becomes really good content for just audience building. So I love it.
I know it was my turn, Tyler, but
Michael,
hold on. I know it was my turn, but I
Yeah.
have to tell her how great her book looks too. I looked it up while she mentioned it.
Big
That book-
time, yeah.
Those covers are way above an average new person. Those covers are amazing. The style, the positioning, those are exactly covers that will sell books.
Thank you. The artist is incredible.
awesome. Michael, any thoughts on imposter syndrome and overcoming it and still building an audience?
Yeah, I mean, replying specifically to what you're talking about, Karla, in terms of like just getting into comics too, right? I feel like being a fan and being a creator are two totally different things, right? Where when you think about all those cool people you see on TikTok and stuff who are spouting like the ancient lore and history of all these different characters, right? Like, that's the whole thing they do. And a lot of times those people are not even creators, right? I don't think you need to measure your trivia of certain characters to sort of what those people are doing and what they know, etc. I think it's great to get to take that in. Like Patrick was saying, he's been reading comics for 30 years. I've been reading comics for not 30 years because I'm barely that old, but still close. As soon as I got my hands on it. And there's still, every time I come across one of those fun little fan videos, I'm like, holy shit, I thought I knew everything about this, like about the history of the Speed Force or the Flash family or something like that. And then I'm finding out about some random guy who I've never heard of, or even like to keep up with stuff. It's a full-time job, right? So I think, yeah, piggybacking off what everybody else has said so far, like, you've got all this incredible experience elsewhere, right? When I write, as much as I love comics, I don't pull influence from comics always. I get thrilled to see what people are doing visually and layout wise, but like storyline stuff, I'm pulling a lot from like films that I love, pulling a lot from like nonfiction that I've read, or even sometimes poetry. Yeah. So I think you're in a totally fine and even exciting position to be like at the beginning of getting to discover all these new books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tom, any final things to add?
100% support everything everyone has said so far, for sure. I think I want to develop a little bit more into it. And as you were speaking, actually, the word that I wrote down was evangelist. So I think that's your spot. I think that's where, to kind of build off what Tyler was saying, there's that idea you only need 1,000 true fans, right? Which I subscribe to heartily. So if you think about it in those terms, like you're not trying to sell a comic book to 7 billion people on planet Earth. You just need to find 1,000 who are going to send you $5 a month for your awesome comic. That's nothing. That's nothing. Anybody can do that. We can do that. You can do that. And I think the way to do that is to become an evangelist for what your story, the comic book itself, but then also your story, because you just told us this great story right here tonight. and this is how you got into it. That's the story I think you should be telling to all of your potential readers, because those people will then find you. Other people who are thinking, God, I want to read a comic, but I don't know, and where do I start? And they're feeling the same way. Cool. You can go to them and be like, I know, come join my Facebook group, come join my blog, my Patreon, whatever, wherever they're at. Yeah, I think that's totally your strength. I heard a speaker once many years ago say they don't know that they like fish tacos. If they've never had one, they don't know. You have to give it to them. And so I think that's kind of your mindset of like, listen, I just need to get this in front of them, so that when they see it, they'll go, oh, I like this. And you'll be like, I know. You know what I mean? And just for what it's worth, every day Imposter Syndrome, every single day. I can't think of a day that goes by where I am not in that same boat. And so I see you. We all see you. You are absolutely not alone. And yeah, I think that's what I got. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah,
It is. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And the last thing that I'll just add in there, because you had mentioned, well, what if I put stuff out there and I get trollish comments and things like that. One of the realities of doing our work is that it is impossible to have a big audience and a growing audience and not also attract some bit of negative resistance.
Mhm.
There is no, think of all of the books that you love. You're going to find that are widely known. You're going to find a lot of 1-star reviews out there, and you're going to find people that are just hating on it. And so that is one of the things that we kind of have to wrestle with as we start putting our work out into the world and say, which would I rather have? no one know about my thing, or a whole lot of people know about it, and some of them love it, some of them like it, some of them not interested, and some of them, and we might even have some people that really don't like it. But you can't have the big, growing, thriving audiences without also experiencing some of that stuff. And the nice thing about gradually getting into it and gradually growing your audience organically is that over time you really build up that muscle and resistance to criticism. And you also realize that 99% of all criticism that comes at you, or trollish stuff that comes at you, comes from people that are doing far less than you're doing. Because people that are doing more, people that are at a higher level than where you're at right now, do they really have the time and the energy to be able to put into going and trashing other people on the internet? No, they don't. So that's just one of the ways that I look at it, and when I get a negative, terrible comment, if I see it at all, I don't let it bother me, because I know that I'm doing me, and that's, and that person probably is not having a good day.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that helps. I guess would love to hear just a little bit of reflection from Karla of what resonated from this, and maybe any new actions or just mindsets or things that you're going to take away from this.
Oh, it was a lot, and then I took some notes too. So, one of the things I got from this was that it's okay. I have a unique style. I have a unique style, and I should love my voice. And as someone mentioned, being like an evangelist. Shout my story to the roofs from the rooftops. And because there is a community out there who's like me, wanting to get into comic books, but don't know where to start. Some ideas is starting a reading list, starting a book club, and not being afraid to just share my voice with people, and just find my tribe, find that 1,000 people that, would be willing to, read something and support something that I put out. So this has been very encouraging, and especially from you all, because hearing the encouragement from you all, it does mean a lot, not just from my family, like you can do it, but people who actually are in the writing, writers and creators, and who are actually telling me this is possible for me to build a brand around something that I'm beginning to fall in love with. So I really do appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing that imposters definitely don't do is make a comic book, launch it on Kickstarter, and deliver it to their happy backers and come back and make another one. I have never met an imposter that has successfully done that. So just by doing what you're doing, Karla, you're putting yourself in a great position to have the evidence to say that you know what, whenever those thoughts pop up, nope, I'm right where I need to be, and I'll be farther along a year from now. Just watch. So I'm excited to see that develop for you. Great, thank you. Awesome. All right, we're going to jump over to Michael. Michael, can you just give a little introduction to yourself, and then we'll get your hot seat rolling.
Hey, everybody. Michael Dean, how the hell are you? I have done comics. I did a sci-fi podcast. I live in Los Angeles. I work in animation. Done live performance. Jack of some trades, master of a few of them. Yeah. I was
Awesome.
originally. Oh no, sorry. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. If that's good, we can get into your hot seat, and you can share what's on your mind, the issue that you're having.
I was gonna say, yeah, I originally was collaborating with the same artist on a few things. Really loved working with him. I'd say my issue of juggling multiple projects with multiple creative teams is sort of a two-pronged issue. One, sort of financially, looking at how to plan out my Kickstarters for these things, because I want to go that route for at least 2 comics that I'm in production on right now. And it is the other prong of the financial is the sort of like motivation, where when you are working with artists who occasionally, I'm working with people who also work in animation, have their own busy lives, etc. Sort of managing those people as creative partners, without, we're collaborators, without being like, hey, come on, let's do this. Where's the stuff at, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't just, is that clear?
We're going to find out. Does anyone have any clarification questions from Michael?
Are you collaborating with all your artists? Are you paying them? Is this straight up collaboration?
These 2 particular ones we're collaborating. We're both just going in on it with our own time, passion project. I have in the past paid my artist with Kickstarter, his normal page rate, and so in this sort of space where it's like, well, it's a passion project, we're trying to have fun with it, and it is both projects are smaller, atypical, weird stories, and so we're not. I'm not comfortable being like, oh yeah, we'll for sure get you your full page rate for this, as much as like, well, we both want to goof around with this sort of non-traditional format. Let's have fun.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you have how many projects going on simultaneously?
Two comics that I'm trying to launch this year, 2023.
Okay, and you're not paying them at. I guess that's my biggest thing is the pay. Do you think it's because things are going slower because you're not paying them?
Probably, yeah. And it's not like I don't think anybody should work for free. To be clear, it's not. It is more of like a thing we decided to do together, and so we will equally split the net on the back end.
How many Kickstarters have you done so far?
For my graphic novel, I did one for my graphic novel. That was my biggest one. And we were able to get 22K. But a big part of that is that I was so fortunate to be working with the artist who was, he'd worked in comics for years. And so he had a beautiful style. So he was a draw. Both of my friends who I'm working with on these are absolute talents as well, but they mostly work behind the scenes in animation. And so they currently have like less big followings online to help garner that like guaranteed you know, tens of thousands kind of a draw. Yeah.
One of my questions for you is, you say in your question, deadline platform. I do not find that Kickstarter has deadlines. You can launch any month at any time. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I guess in my experience, because I've also used Kickstarter to fund short films and like a performance venue, other stuff like other crowdfunding formats like Indiegogo. And in my experience, it is tougher to just like launch tomorrow and be like, here we go. You sort of have to do a little bit of planning and prep, obviously, with your videos, the sort of posts and things you're going to do without to tent pole and keep the campaign in people's feeds. You kind of got to like build up to it, letting people know that this is something that's coming. And yeah, I hate to like be like, hey, this thing's coming, this thing's coming, this thing's coming. I kind of like to have a sense of 3 months out, start like pushing this thing I'm doing. If that makes sense.
Do you feel like you're the one leading the charge on all these projects?
Currently, yes. Yeah. And I've had both experiences where like sometimes it's like, I want to noodle with the script more. And a friend is like, no, I want to start drawing now. So let's not noodle. And I've had the thing where it's like, well, let's try and move this thing along. And this one I am more, the latter. I'm the driven, the one
Do
trying
your
to
collaborators
keep it
know
going
that?
first. That's a good question. I think so, yeah. How do you mean? Do they know? Let me.
Well, somebody's
follow
got to
up
be.
that. Yeah.
What I mean, I'm not meaning to dive into the hot seat portion of it, but
No,
it definitely
please.
seems like in a collaborative situation, somebody needs to be the clearly defined leader who says like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is when I need it by, and you guys tell me, are these realistic expectations? And if they're not, we need to all be on the same page about how, when, and where. Because if not, it's just like floating out there in the ether, and everybody's kind of not wanting to be the guy to go like, what are we doing? Like, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? Like,
Right.
So, I had a couple of questions. Like,
Please.
one, so with every project, there's every comic project, there's the creation of it. Get it to the ready where this thing could go to print, and then there's the launch, get it funded portion of it. Some creators choose to launch at a certain percentage complete. Some creators wait until the thing is all the way done, and basically all you need to do is print it. What was your plan? How much were you planning to get done for each of these projects, or had you even discussed that? Like at what point would you take up either of these projects to Kickstarter?
I would say once all of Black and White is complete, we're moving through color, and we have a couple like strong color pages to show, and then I have started lettering things because I also oftentimes letter myself. Because that zone, that's you're past the 50-yard line. You've got a sense of like where that how reasonably to expect that finish.
Okay.
I think I'm being oh no, please.
And then the other question I had is, do you perceive, even though these are two different creative teams with you at the center, would you say that there would be a strong audience crossover and interest in each of these projects potentially? Like, so for example, could you be like in your weekly or biweekly or monthly email and social media stuff, can you be teasing both of these projects to the same audience regardless of which one launches first?
I'd say that's a great point. And yeah, absolutely. Yes. And yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we got some clarification there. Let's just I want to maybe start with Travis, like ideas, thoughts. You're someone that's juggling. I don't even know how many teams creators.
What are you talking about? I do one project at a time. Yeah, as someone like you said, I juggle. I did 6 Kickstarters this year. Off the comic category. That's not counting. That's 6 orange cone. I also work for other companies where I launch or write for that I do stuff as well. So the real number is closer to 10. But that's neither here nor there. One of the things I think is really hard, and I've seen people in your situation, even people locally they get these friend situations where, you know, hey, I want this partnership, and it's starting to struggle, and it's trying to build those things, and you want to move forward because you've decided this is your thing, but they're like, oh, I just want to hang out with my friend, so I'll give them a page, and when I'll get to it and stuff. If I don't do it this week, I'll do it next weekend. I think that's kind of hard, and I think that, however, you're in a good position because you told me you've done several Kickstarters, Indiegogo, you've done several of these platforms. So as Patrick said earlier, you are the leader of this, whether or not you want to be or not. Like I think that putting that down and saying, hey, I know what it takes to do this, and we need to get this, this, and this so we can do it. And maybe even having those conversations of what do we need to do that? I need to do this in Q1 so we can be successful for Q2. And you could even use things like statistic. Hey, there's more projects on Kickstarter in October. We can't launch in October. Like, you could say these certain things. I don't believe in a lot of those things, but it is those that doesn't make them untrue, right? Just because I don't believe in that it doesn't mean that that's not true. There is more projects in October. It's just fact. Whether that affects your ability to fund, that's a whole different story. The other thing I think is, you know, you have this huge strength of a $22,000 Kickstarter. Very, very few people can say that. So whether or not, however you got it, don't belittle your part of that, because I think that's a big problem I had with Imposter Syndrome when I had the big Cthulhu Invades, you know, Oz and Wonderland, when I have these $50,000 Kickstarters, and then my next one's at 7. Like, it's not all the same, but what do I need to make the book? That's the real question. And how do you do that, you know, and get there?
I think that's really helpful. Yeah. Very nice to hear that you've done 6 in this year. Yes.
As of Monday.
Yeah. Congrats. Hell yeah.
Okay. So I hope I don't misspeak. Can I, as a clarifying question, so you have a full-time job as an animator, correct?
Yes, I'm a coordinator for animation.
Coordinator. Okay. So your bills are paid right now.
True. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then second question is, what are your, I don't want to sound too lofty, but like, what are your life goals with this art that you're creating, with these comic books? Like, is your intent to someday come back to another ComixLaunch mastermind and being like, yeah, I make my full-time living making my own comics on Kickstarter? Or is it something else? What do you want, basically?
That's a great question. And you're not misspeaking at all. I love getting to the meat of the matter, truthfully. I'm a writer, and I want to make all of my money as a writer. And I've had some experience putting together, rather than a full script, pitches for a couple smaller houses, and gotten really warm nose of like, well, this is we like this, but it's just a little bit too close to something else we've moved forward with. I've pitched animated half hours before. So that is where I'm driving towards. The thing that I love about Kickstarter is that, like, one of the 2 projects is going to have, like, it's about a song that ends the world, and it's going to have like this weird little 7-inch vinyl in the back that is the song that ends the world. We're doing it in a 1/1, and it's going to be a 7-inch. It's going to look like a 7-inch, you know what I mean? But you open it up and it's the comic. And so that's where my career is going. But I love the freedom that Kickstarter allows me to lean into the art side of things, if that makes sense.
Okay. Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
So knowing that, because this is a question that I have to address in my writing classes pretty frequently, is I think you've already answered the question, frankly. And this is where, and I hate saying it, but like it's true. If we're going to talk about being business owners, which to me we are all small business owners. We are all entrepreneurs in some way, shape, or form. And if the goal is to be able to pay the mortgage with our work, cool. And number one, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm tired of people who try to talk about, well, I'm an artist. Good for you. Do you want to pay the bills? Come on. Like, that's just me. But seriously. So if that is the goal, and I believe that it is, because I'm in the same boat, then I think your priorities are already there. Like, so is the one that you're doing with a friend, like, is that going to be cool? Yeah. Could you make 20,000 or 30,000 or 50,000 on a Kickstarter? Yeah, probably. Why not? That's cool. Is that the thing that's going to move the needle forward on your life goal? Because if it's not, then that's very naturally going to fall to second place or third place or fourth place while you're doing the thing that is that you're paying your artists for, that you're signing contracts with people, and that kind of thing. I just think we need to have those different hats that we put on. And when it comes to answering your question, you have to put on the CEO hat. This is Michael, CEO, saying, this is where we're going, team. And then Michael, artist, has to go, damn it, all right, and just agree, that kind of thing. So I would say that's where I would come from. That's where I do come from when I have to prioritize or juggle those kinds of multiple projects. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just to piggyback off that, and I'm thinking of some of the professional writers that I know and work with sometimes, but also like see how they operate, and some of them are in that enviable position that you are, that other talented artists, and those talented artists are interested to work with you and willing to do it on a back end deal. Those are things that, like, usually you tell young aspiring writers who I want to get started, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to find an artist that I don't know to come work with me, and everything will be on the back end. Usually that never works, because who is this person? But because you already have those built-in relationships, and artists or other writers will find, like, as you start to get credentials and get stuff, like, there'll be artists that are coming to you and saying, yeah, let's pull something together. Let's make something happen. And no, I don't need you to pay me a page rate right now, because, like, I want to own a piece of it, and I want to see how big we can build this together. The flip side of that is those are the projects that are usually that person's side hustle, right? And so, I just published one of those for Brian K. Lindsay, A Fistful of Pain, really talented artists. They were sort of working, but it was a 7-year project, right? And so I think one of the advantages that you have is that, like, you don't have a strong driver of, like, this needs to launch in June, or this needs to launch or what have you. They can launch when they're ready to launch. But it may also be worth having some projects that you can actually control that dial a little bit more, so that that come hell or high water, you're launching something in 2023. That it may be helpful to, and I hate to go, how do you juggle multiple projects? Add another project to it. But in some cases, if there are no deadlines, and it's when you're going to get to it, like, you may want to think about, all right, well, I need to have at least one project that I know is going to launch in next year. So it's a thought.
It kind of sounds to me like maybe if you have a sense of, like, one of these collaborative teams is more motivated than the others, you might prioritize one of those projects, have some honest conversations about what your expectations are, which you first have to come up with, which is like, hey, I want to get this project move forward. I want to see it at this stage by this date. Are you guys on the same page with me? Can we get this done? I think you probably need some hard lines with the people that you're working on to, if you're wanting to get these things pushed across the finish line sooner rather than later.
Karla, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, everyone touched on what I wanted to say. Communication is the backbone of every profitable business. I learned that in healthcare, being in healthcare for 20 years, communication is key. A lot of mistakes can be avoided. A lot of time can be gained by communicating effectively. So you have to communicate to your team, but also you have to be honest with what you really want. So if you want to pay your bills with your writing, then maybe even setting up like a timetable for yourself, not for your team, but also for yourself. Like, by January 2023, I want this done. By February 2023, I want this done. So by this time next year, you're paying, you are fully capable of having a full-time income plus with your work, because I peeped at your work today. It's incredible. And I haven't seen anything like it. And it's something that you'll see.
That's
I
so
know
nice.
we'll
Thank
see
you.
it on TV one day, like it's coming. But if you really truly want to pay your bills, you have to remember, you have to communicate. And also you have to remember that your passion is not everyone else's passion. And they're just not going to be as, excited to finish this as much as you are. So definitely keep your collabs going, but you got to start making some more moves if you want this time next year to be writing your own checks. So, and that takes communication and being honest with yourself, and setting some deadlines for yourself, and taking risks, because having a nice check every month is great. But when I decided to start my own business, I have another business. I had to take a loss for a little bit because I really wanted to get my other business off the ground. So I put in the overtime for like 3 months, and then that 1 month I just did not work, and I was like, I'm going all in on this. And I this time, a year later, now I'm making a full-time income off my healthcare marketing business. So now I'm trying to ease myself into the comic book world. So you gotta be honest with yourself, set hard deadlines for yourself, and be willing to take a loss for a little bit until you can get your passion up off the ground.
Any final thoughts for Michael?
I don't know. I think it's relevant. I was just thinking also the difference between sort of the passion project versus the quote unquote work project, for lack of a better term, is contracts, like getting that stuff in writing, even if it's people you know and love, like you still have to get something in writing. I think that's a powerful motivator, and you can always kind of fall back on it. My experience so far, I've never had to do that. Like I've signed stuff, I don't remember where the hell it is now, because the project's done and we're fine. But having that thing where you got to print it off and sign it and send it back in, like that lands differently than we should work together someday, so that's something I would add to the mix, I think.
All right, because this is a private group, and Tyler agreed not to air this anywhere. I'll tell you my secret. All right, I'll tell you my secret. 1, pay for a variant cover. Your main artist tends to work a lot harder once they see somebody else is drawing their stuff. Don't tell anybody. That's a secret. So it's a guard in prison, but I've used it maybe once or 1,000 times. The second thing, very similar, is if you have a part of your story that can be written in like a flashback that you can have somebody else do so you can get movement, that is really helpful too. Not only does it help you have somebody else, you said one of your concerns is that you hit this big number for they don't have the juice. Well, maybe if you have a flashback that's 4 or 5 pages, you can have somebody else draw that. Maybe they have some juice that can help you get to that level. That's what the power of anthologies is, power of backup stories. That's why these things were created. Some of them to give it opportunities, but also I've seen backups used the other way, where a big creator will write the backup story to help give credit to the main writer who's an up and comer.
Yeah. High level pro tips there, Travis. I like it.
Those can't go live, right? So that's not,
yeah.
you're not.
Don't worry. I'm sure that
We'll cut that in post.
Yeah,
earmuffs, everyone watching the stream, earmuffs.
Right. I don't want anyone to know that.
Oh, we're streaming? I thought this was a rehearsal. I didn't know.
Michael, what do you think? What resonated there for you, and any new actions you're going to take as a result?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that, the hearing from everybody was extremely helpful. I think there's a couple things there, which is like, one, I think a lot about, spinning plates, shifting between projects. But I think the articulation of also like, you're not just changing projects, you're changing hats sometimes, right? Like, you're not just the writer, you're also the editor. You're also got to put on the CEO hat kind of a thing and make sure things are happening. I think, putting clear deadlines is also like a huge help for like, this is when I'm expecting for this to be done. So that way we can move forward in these ways. And I also think, again, I said it quietly, but Karla, thank you so much for the nice comments about what I have done. Cause that's really sweet. And that does mean a lot. I think my next move is just going to be having a couple conversations, like reassessing what our expectations are for when certain things should be done, when we can expect them to be done to move forward with this or that. And I'm going to steal that variant cover tip. That's good.
Yeah, that is a good one. Awesome, Michael. Well, thank you for bringing that topic up.
Thank you.
We're going to keep rocking. Thanks for everyone for commenting who are watching. We've got 3 more awesome hot seats for us. And so we're going to jump over to author Tom Levine. Tom, just give a short introduction to yourself and your work, and then we'll dive into your hot seat.
All right, cool. Thanks. So I've done so far 3 Kickstarters. 2 of them have been prose. One has been the first issue of a 3-part comic. Prior to jumping into Kickstarter, I was a traditionally published novelist with imprints of Random House and Simon & Schuster. And I've also, many years ago now, I was fortunate enough to write a few issues of Spawn, which was pretty awesome. And I can absolutely vouch for the getting comic book writers getting pulled in from other arenas. That's exactly what happened to me. So it does happen. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Awesome. And so you have a topic that I know a lot of writers out there have, especially when they start seeing certain content, certain genres, certain things pop on Kickstarter. Elaborate on what's on your mind, man.
So I think we all, and it's funny because I feel like the last 2 hot seats have sort of are combining into this one. I have a voice, just like all of us have a very distinctive, specific voice to ourselves, and things that I like to write and things that I like to write about. And you know, again, I've had some successful Kickstarters, which is great, but I see the ones that are making 20,000, 50,000, so on. I'm going, yeah, I don't write those genres though. Should I? Because if I, like we just talked about, want to do this as a full-time thing and want to be living off my writing, then I need to some degree, look at what the market wants and what the market will bear. On the other hand, I also know from experience, trying to do just that is almost guaranteed heartbreak for the artist part of us. And so maybe it's not different projects, but trying to juggle, like, well, I really want to write, you know, this particular genre about these types of characters. Meanwhile, everyone in ComixLaunch is making 5 or 6 figures writing about that thing. Maybe I should write more about that thing, or try to find a way to mix it up. And it gets really confusing. And then I just shut down completely and don't write anything, which is not a good way to go. So I think that's kind of where I'm struggling.
Great. Yeah, it's a great topic. Clarification questions for Tom.
Do you think you can write those other genres that sell? Like maybe that's outside of your wheelhouse.
I'm sorry, am I supposed to answer? I forget.
Yeah, clarification questions. Yeah,
sorry. Many of them, yes. If it's anything in speculative fiction, I feel pretty confident with my background and the things that I have written and or published that yes, I probably could.
What kind of things do you like to write about? What are the topics you do like to write about?
I tend to gravitate to character-based things, like you were talking about how different your book is. Mine, the one that I went through Kickstarter, also not a superhero. It was basically a contemporary young adult comic book for all intents and purposes. Very character-focused, very usually rooted in some way, shape, or form in adolescence and teenagers. That's been my genre since I was published, and it's something I'm very comfortable writing in. And then I also enjoy horror of all different kinds, and again, some different speculative fiction. I'm probably not so good at magic systems, for example, but I can do some sci-fi and I can do low fantasy, that kind of thing. Superheroes, I've done some superhero writing. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
So, clarifying question. I'm supposed to not ask him about Spawn and ask him about his thing. Just want to make sure.
Got it.
So, my question is, when you're looking at these Kickstarter, these ones that are doing performance, is it just Kickstarter that you're worried about this, or the whole literary market?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I'm going to say mostly Kickstarter at this point, although I do try to keep an eye on the rest of the market, but I'd say right now it's probably more focused on Kickstarter. Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that.
I have one more clarifying question, which is like when you talk about threading the needle between stories you want to write and the ones that seem to do better on Kickstarter, like, is it a question of, are you considering ways to market or tweak elements of the things you're already writing to bring them into a middle? Or is it threading the needle between your time of like doing things that would be straight Kickstarter candy and things that are like what you really want?
Did you just say Kickstarter candy?
Yeah.
That's a great phrase. I need to write that down because that really sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Great question. I hadn't thought about that. I came to this intending to mean threading the needle between what I want to write and what sells. But I really appreciate your question because it hadn't occurred to me that was even an option, actually, that there was a way to manufacture, and I don't mean that in a dismissive or bad way, to create something that was kind of for Kickstarter specifically. That hadn't even crossed my mind. So the former was my intent, how to combine genres, I guess, maybe, or if that's even a good idea or not a good idea, I'm not really sure. Because and then the imposter syndrome kicks in. Like, who are you to do this? Like, nobody's going to want to read your, YA superhero, horror, steampunk, vampire, romance, or, like, come on. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Tom before we dive into it? I guess what's the biggest appeal, the biggest driver of going for like doing something outside of or doing a market chase? Is it more readers, access to a bigger, broader community of people that are interested in that genre? Is it the putting up a big Kickstarter number? Like when you feel the jealousy pop up a little bit, or that just like envy, like what is it that you're like, oh, I wish I had more of that?
I think when it comes to, if we're going to focus more on, obviously on Kickstarter, I think it's mostly I guess it's the business, really. Like, because I'm seeing creators like some of you here who are making these 5-figure type of Kickstarters on a single issue comic book or something, and I'm like, how on earth did that happen, and how can I do that without necessarily, like, I'm certainly not interested in copying what anybody else is doing. Like, I don't need to do the next Thor or the next, whatever. I've always hated being the next whatever. I want to do my stuff. And yeah, there's a certain level of recognition, I suppose, in community that I envy and like want to be a part of. So it's kind of all of that. I don't know if that makes sense, if I'm answering that very well.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to hone in on what, because like, a lot of time like envy or jealousy gets a bad rap, but usually it's like they're just feelings, and usually those are feelings that can point us as like a compass towards what it is we're actually trying to pull in and attract. And so when that doesn't turn to like, all right, and now I have to destroy these people that are doing these cool things.
Yeah.
And now I know that's not you, Tom.
No. And it's funny, though, Tyler, that you mentioned that, because I've struggled with this, too. I've noticed, having been part of the group for several years now, when I have author friends who have some level of success, new book comes out or whatever, I get so mad and so angry and so jealous over that, versus when someone from ComixLaunch does a comic book and it's 5 figures, 6 figures, whatever, I'm like, cool, that's awesome. And how do I do that? It's a very different emotional feeling, and I haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, for what it's worth, it's two very different feelings there.
I got a couple of questions, Tom. One, you good?
Mm-hmm.
I good? All right. So one, how many Kickstarters have you done so far?
3.
Okay. What is the average amount that you're raising?
Let's call it 2,000, maybe 3,000.
Okay, so in that range. And what is this ideal number that is it the 10K number? Is it the 20? Because I'll be honest, like I love that 10K number. Like anything I can get to 10K, that's my goal. I've tried to learn from that, but that's the stuff. Is that where you're at, or 5 is good? 6, where are you going?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I appreciate concrete figures. So my goal for several years now has been to average out $5,000 a month of income from my writing, from my creative, whatever format that takes, doesn't matter. So if that were the case, then however many Kickstarters it would take to get to about 60K a year would be like I would have reached this year's goal, you know, and as soon as I reached it, I'd have another one. But for now, like that's kind of the metric I'm looking at. Does that answer your question?
It does.
So $6,000, $10,000 Kickstarters, cool, or 12, 5,000. What doesn't matter, like the numbers.
But again, that's not income. Like when you really factor that, I made over 70,000 this year. That's not income. I didn't get $70,000 in the bank account that I didn't have to spend. I'll tell you that.
No, you're right. Absolutely right. I think for our purposes, that would still. I would still consider that a rousing success to have raised 60K over a year. I think would be that would blow my mind. Yeah, good point.
Well, do you worry at all that the chasing the stuff that is successful is kind of a trap, and that you get a taste of the money that it's like say you do something that you don't care about, but you've designed it around the idea of it being successful, and then it is successful. Are you going to be able to put that down and go back and write what you want to write? Or now are you obligated to keep putting this thing out you really don't care about, but you're making money on it?
Not for very long. I could do it for a little while because I've done it for a little while. I've done it before. You know, when you write for certain, for like IP work, like that's just kind of part of it to a certain degree. It can still be fun and it can still be good. Like I wouldn't do something that I just didn't have any connection to, you know, like for example, in the prose world, if I wanted to make a lot of money on Amazon, I would be writing romance like that. That's a no brainer, right? I can't.
Not, right?
I've tried.
But you're not writing it.
But I'm not writing it. I can't do it, you know? So, yes, I do think there's an element of trap. And I guess I would, in a perfect world, I would be able to meld the stories that I want to tell with the stuff that seems to be more popular. And that maybe that's the art style too. Like I'm not even clear on what pieces of it are what's selling. You know, is it the story? Is it the art? Is it, yes, it's both. Like I'm still trying to work that out. But I absolutely think that yes, it would be a trap and then it would suck. That would definitely suck.
I mean, that makes it sound like you should just keep pursuing the stuff that you want to write and build it and get that to producing the income that you're
I know.
I mean, it might be a longer road, but you know, ultimately at the end of each one of those roads, one of them you're like, and the other one you're like, hey, this was hard work and it took longer, but I'm writing what I want and it's finally gotten me what I was after.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so that's kind of a good transition into just some brainstorming or some ideas, trying to solve this, or at least providing some perspective for Tom. Anyone want to open up with just some thoughts and reflecting back on what you're hearing and what Tom might want to think about?
I think right off the bat, we are talking about like, follow what's true to you, of course, but I do think there is some merit to the corollary point of like, you know, what we were talking about for me, like, sometimes just like spin a few plates where it's like, when you do that sort of IP stuff, as you like, or just like pursuing something specific, you don't want to do romance, right? But if you got to do that, right, if you did go straight romance on something, and you don't really have anyone to answer to, right, you're just, that's sort of you're thinking of threading the needle of like, I'm checking the box of like, this is a romance and it has buzzwords that'll do well, but in the heart of it, like, it is still very much your voice.
Yeah.
And mixing that back and forth with doing things that are fully your voice, like, I think there's something to explore there, right? If masquerading, if Trojan horsing something as like popular sort of could work for you, and then you get your voice in there. And I think too, like in my experience, the projects, when I do projects that are most of my comics voice and my sci-fi podcast voice is a little more dramatic and serious, but I got a lot of support on those things from people who are originally familiar with me doing like comedy and very broad goofy stuff. And so I think as long as you are still building your audience, right, like I think people will like you and will be there to support when you're doing the quieter stuff and when you're doing the more candy stuff. If that makes,
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents. So let me tell you the story of 2 types of nurses during COVID. So we had the nurse, nurse A, he or she made 5,000 plus a week, all throughout COVID, was in the trenches, didn't see their family for weeks at a time, high blood pressure, stressed out. But at the end of it, they had money in their pocket and they were able to do whatever they needed to do, pay loans off, pay bills off, pay mortgages off. Most of those nurses that I know did that are no longer working in that capacity. They may still be nurses or they may decided to take a break, right? And then nurse B, which is me, I did not do any of that. I said, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to find a job that was not as demanding. I still had to work around COVID, but I wasn't making those bucks, right? But I still was a nurse. I still was doing something that I felt comfortable with. And at the end of it, I still came out of it, still moving the needle forward into what I wanted to do, which was to start my own business. And then nurse A was still able to start his or her own business too. So for me, I personally don't see anything wrong with dabbling into another type of a project that will bring you some money, some more money, if that is just the means to your end. I don't see anything wrong with it. Now the issue would be if you lost yourself in that. If you did something sold out that was against you against your principles or something like that, and which I don't think you will do that. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with tackling something you that will bring you closer to your dream of writing what you really want. So that's my devil's advocate kind of point of view. I don't see anything wrong with it. So
Yeah, and I guess I'll also say from another perspective, as someone that got into publishing to publish comics, and yet one of my biggest successes was a children's book line that I had no interest in really at the start. It was more about hey, this writer who I think is awesome is interested in is doing some cool comic stuff, and he's got this idea, and wouldn't it be cool to put it? But I'll tell you, success got me more interested in it, and so and this is something that can't be overlooked. That having a hit, having success, having a property that you can build around, and a brand and an audience that attracts people easier, had a serious ripple effect for me. In that I was all of a sudden oh, wait a minute, I got something that I can double and triple down on. So maybe I can invest in better tools to reach an audience, or maybe I can, Facebook ads seems like something. Let's experiment with these, and because I have a hit on my hands, I can afford for this not to work. And so there's a lot of advantages that happen and margin that gets created when you are working in a genre that is already established, and you don't have to sell people on every aspect and element of your stuff. I guess I do wonder if, and this will just be putting back, is is there any part of you that is letting yourself off the hook by not going after things that you think would be more marketable so that you can stay playing a little bit small?
Well, this has been fun, everybody. See you later. Yeah, maybe there might be a small.
We said there was going to be a hot seat, Tom. Come
Yeah,
on.
that's pretty hot. Tyler. Damn. There might be a piece of that. Yep.
So for me, Tom, I agree with Tyler to a little on a lot of it, but I've got a different kind of approach. Mostly because I listen to punk rock music, so selling out happens all the time for me. I'm used to it. It's just part of my world. It's just how I grew up. But one of the missteps that I think I've done in my career over the last 5 years or so is I didn't keep sticking to something, even though it was seeing growth. And I just look at people who have, like the Nightwolves and the White Ash and the people who are seeing that massive growth. It's because they stick to it. And like someone's like, wow, it's on issue 9. It's got to be good. Like, I think that there's a logic to that. I really do. And I didn't think that at the beginning. I was like, I need to do as many 4 or 5 issue miniseries as I can. That's why things like this happen that cause a lot of drama that we're not going to discuss. Things like that happen that go crazy. But I think sticking to something, if you believe in something, I think it's so important to stick it out longer than you think, unless it's seeing huge decline and costing you tons of money. But if you're seeing growth, I think it's really important. And I really, as I think and as I thought about it, as I'm going to this next stage in my career where I started to go into Diamond doing stuff, all of the people who I love did that, right? Sin City, though it was small, was a long short. Strangers in Paradise, Stray Bullets, like these people who I love and admire were like, I don't care if anybody's reading. I'm going to keep making my book. Eric Larson, he's not going to stop writing Savage Dragon. It sells like 4 copies. It sells more than that, Eric, if you're hearing. I love you. But you get what I'm saying. Like, doing that in indie, I think that there's a cred that other indie creators and other people who love comics give to creators who stick it to a title and go, I love this guy. I want to be on this long journey. And when you get that particular person, it's going to be way easier to keep them for that 1,000.
Yeah.
So I know that's different than what Tyler said. And I do think that, I've done a whole bunch of genres. I've swung to things. I've looked at my art styles. I've looked at my cover styles, and all of those factor in and change things. Absolutely. Anthology seems to do really well for me, especially if they have that big green monster, especially if I rip up public domain. But as you know, as a writer, I create wonderful things. I don't want to be known for the Cthulhu guy, right? The guy who stole from H.P. Lovecraft. I don't want to be the guy who stole from Wonderland, I don't want to do that, even though those are the biggest success and the things that I use. So I think that that's important. And I think you can do it if you can afford to do, hey, this one shot that's a sellout thing to try to give fan base to your thing. But I think the core thing is find something that I know if this can be in front of the right guy, it's going to make it, and keep building it. As long as you see growth, keep doing it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that with Travis. I think you're sort of at an interesting point, Tom, though, where like trying things and seeing what that reaction is. Like, Robert Kirkman is probably the example of the creator in comics he's our generation Stan Lee in terms of success, right? And he built a success off having 2 of the longest running series of like the last 2 decades. But neither of those were the series that he started with or even the first couple. Like he put out a couple of things and planted some seeds, got a little bit of traction, but also saw that neither of those were going to be the thing. But then once he got something that hit, and it turned out like the stuff that really hit for him was stuff that were high concepts that in a log line you could pitch to somebody. Yeah. And so that may be something where like, you can do, and it's not like all of those things didn't have tremendous character work and tremendous depth, but some projects just are easy sledding to it. So you may not have found it yet, and you may still be at the thing where you want to try to, you know, do something a little bit more commercial, or a little bit more where there's a built-in Kickstarter audience, where like a few keywords and a few hot points, or a few images that just always seem to be popping up on, you know, hell, a sexy redhead. Maybe that's all you need to have in your book, and it might pop. But if that at least gets you a little bit extra momentum, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think you're a good enough writer that you can get all of that other stuff in, if you also still have that commercial stuff. I don't know how many conventions you've done, and now we're starting to get back into conventions. But for me, one of the things that was a really great learning experience is just that, like, there were some books that I had on my table that these are just easier to pitch at conventions, and easier to get the random person off the street. Oh yeah, tell me more. And it's like,
Yeah.
And that made me more interested in the work that I was doing, and more committed to it, and wanting to go back and make this even better, as a result of it. And so, you know, that's just something that you may want to get more into doing, and just like put more ideas out there into the world. Because I also know, like, if you have like a creator group and things like that, and you've got 5 ideas, or even going and doing the exercise of, all right, here guys, I'm challenging myself to come up with the 10 most Kickstarter, like, in fact, I'd challenge everyone here to do, you know, come up with 5 like no-brainer Kickstarter, to the Kickstarter market, high concepts and titles. You know, that's all, you know, just the ideas, and then pitch, and then have a pitch off with some of your buddies. And you may find that somebody's like, oh shit, man, if you're not going to do that, I'm going to do that, you know? And then maybe you have a little bit of fun with it, you know?
And I just wanted to also add, Tyler gives us a really great example in the program about Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks started off in comedy. That's what he got good at. That's where the money was. That's the jobs he was getting. But now, what is he doing? He's not doing a lot of comedy. He's doing drama. He's doing he did Disney film, the Pinocchio remake. So it's okay. I feel it's okay to get good at one thing. I think we're all saying the same thing. You know, find that one thing that you can get good at. Now, some of us have different opinions on how that one thing should be at this point in your life. But if you are trying to become an authority and I think you shared your work with us through the email thread.
Yeah.
Okay, then that is a huge, actually that is a very huge in health, especially in healthcare, that the young adult, especially with mental health and those things that you explore in your comic book, that actually is a very huge community. They just may not be reading the comic books yet. So that is something to definitely explore and keep doing that. But in order to get there, you might have to take a little detour, just like Tom Hanks did early in his career. So, you know, until you get to the point where you're known for this one thing, but then people will trust you to tell them more different types of stories. So I think we're all saying focus on one thing, but it's up to you whether or not you want that one thing to be A or B.
Yeah.
It's really up to you, you know, and either way, you're going to accomplish your goals and dreams. So
Thank you.
Tom,
Yeah.
what do you think? What are you taking away, and what action do you want to take?
I think I love the pitch off contest, even if that's with myself. I think that's probably a good idea. I've done similar things to that in the past, but nothing that was geared toward Kickstarter. And I think that's an important distinction to make. And I think my action item really kind of for this, which is funny because it's easier to tell everybody else to do it, but it's to take myself out for a drink of whatever and have a serious discussion about what we want to do. The royal we kind of want to do about this kind of thing. And Yeah, and I'm really basically looking forward to finding the link for this, I guess on Facebook and wherever else, so that I can rewatch this a couple dozen times and write down everything you all said, because it all landed really, really well. And I'm not going to sleep tonight, so thanks for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and we're sorry.
Yep. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom, for bringing that up. And I think it is funny how when we pull these, and I try to pull sort of diverse topics for a nice balance session. And I want to thank and just say an appreciation to all of the creators that applied to be on here. I had way more creators that were interested than spots for a couple hour session. And so I want to thank you guys again for being here, and then everyone else that submitted. Keep submitting. Hopefully, we'll find a spot for you one of these times. We have 2 more hot seats today. We're going to move over to Patrick, and I think there's kind of a nice through line from Tom's to Patrick's as well. But Patrick, why don't you start by just introducing yourself again and sharing what your work is, and then we'll get into your hot seat.
Yeah, hello, I am Patrick Kellner. I'm the writer-creator of Gage and the Dragon's Tear. I publish that through my publishing imprint, West of the Sun Comics. I just finished up my 4th successful Kickstarter.
Okay. And I think that's that recent Kickstarter launch is sort of spawning your hot seat topic. Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, if I can step back and kind of just give the history. So that was my 4th one. My first Kickstarter, I raised $2,044, 82 backers. Number 2, I went $2,854 with 150 backers. The 3rd Kickstarter, I raised $4,432 with 172 backers. And then the 4th one, I raised $4,460 with 170 backers. So 2 less backers, a couple more extra dollars, but just not really demonstrating kind of the organic growth that I've been able to put together previously.
Okay. Okay, great. And so the question of, has the series peaked? That's the main question that you have?
Yeah, has it
how do
peaked?
you know?
And if not, what's the move?
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, clarification questions. Tom, get us started.
Yeah, Patrick, have you already done, like, whether it's an Excel document or whatever, have you already kind of listed out all of the possible factors that you can possibly think of? Like, well, this one launched, these 3 launched in January, and this other one launched in April. I did Facebook ads for this one, but not these 3. Like, any of that kind of work yet?
Yeah, I mean, I essentially ran all of these campaigns exactly the same. I had a bigger email list going forward to each one. I did more marketing. I didn't do any paid Facebook ads, but more promotional stuff going forward for each one. I mean, I've got kind of some thoughts, obviously, about kind of what what some of the changes are, but you don't want to be too confident that you've got it all figured out, and maybe what you think it is not what it was. So, I mean, I think, there's always the potential that the current economic situation could have played a factor. This is the first time I've done 2 Kickstarters in a year. So maybe I'm too quick back to the platform. The time of year, like Travis mentioned earlier, there's more projects on the platform in October, but.
Okay. Other clarification questions for Patrick?
I think you. Oh, pardon. Go for it,
Go ahead.
Karla.
Oh, okay. What have you done besides growing your email list? What have you done to grow your community outside the email list?
Not a ton, just trying to be more active in kind of the online communities, trying to be more active in the ComixLaunch, kind of doing more of this type of stuff right here, trying to get, just try to get in front of people more. I haven't done, again, and the thing that I'm noticing is because I've done it the same, you would hope, obviously, if I had more promotional stuff or ran more ads, I would have hoped to have gotten even a bigger boost. But, I was kind of expecting to get a similar organic growth having done things the same way. And that just didn't materialize this time.
So, right, Patrick, is your 4th one? You don't have one currently right now. You just wrapped
No,
one
it
up.
just closed out a few weeks ago. It finished up.
You said you've done 4 Kickstarters for this series. I know you've put out other short stories and things. Were those also Kickstarters, or
So only one of my other short stories, it went into Cthulhu is Hard to Spell Volume 3. The other ones that I have, I'm just kind of sitting on. I considered putting my own anthology together as I kind of accumulate more work, but I have not done anything with those others yet.
Cool.
Is this series sort of set in stone, or are you sort of are you sort of locked into this for the long haul, or are you sort of looking at this and saying, well, if this thing has peaked and if it starts going the other direction, that you would cut bait on it? Or
Well, I mean, look, I've lost money on every one of my books, and I can justify that and move with that as long as I'm seeing the project grow and move forward. But that's definitely, it's definitely a looking forward moment. Like, is this thing going to grow to a point where it's at least a break-even project, or is this just going to be, a hole that's going to get bigger and deeper?
So
yeah.
My biggest question for you is, so Kickstarter is your main output, or is it your only output for this product?
It's pretty much my only output, but I mean, I do have, wherever you put your books, you are essentially obligated to drive the marketing for those. I apologize, guys.
Sure.
Good night, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. I gotta go. You gotta go. I love you. No, come on. I gotta go. Sorry about that.
I wanted to hear what he had to say. Hang on.
Well, watch every interview I do.
Get your fans.
Like everyone. So yeah, I was gonna say, Travis, I have my books on ComixOlogy. I have them on Global Comics. They're up on the Amazon digital platform. So they're out there, but I'm not, you just saw it. I'm not positioned to kind of be on the convention circuits.
Sure. How about LCSs and other podcasts? Do you do a lot of podcasts, or?
I've done this has always been a humongous hurdle for me, is to
These are hard.
Get myself out. And, I'm a behind the curtain guy. I'm not somebody that likes to get out and talk about myself. So I've done more and more of these as kind of the career's advanced. It seems like a necessary evil, if you will. So I have been doing more and more of those during Kickstarter campaigns to try to promote the book and to try to promote the campaign. So I am doing more of it, and I've done more for each campaign.
One more question before it goes on. Is the length of the campaign stayed the same? Because I know a lot of us go 4 weeks and we switch it down to 3 weeks. Some are even 2 weeks. Have they been all 30-day campaigns, or what have they been?
Yeah, I've done like I said, they've been essentially the same. I've adjusted a couple of tiers and kind of been trying to be a little more creative about adding more things.
Sure.
But the structure of the campaigns themselves have been the same.
Okay.
Very cool.
I got one more question. Maybe you don't have to answer this. I'm not exactly sure how to answer it, but you've said you've lost on each of these.
Yeah.
Where sort of are you losing? And I know that's sort of maybe hard to articulate, but is your biggest overhead the printing, the distro, the artist? What?
Art and production.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always printing, because I'm not committing myself at this point, because I'm not doing conventions and things like that. So I'm not committing myself to big offset print runs. I'm kind of just printing roughly what I need each campaign. So I'm not investing a lot of money. It's all the production of the book. And
are you at least do you have additional copies of the books on the
yeah,
back
I've
end
always got some
potentially
left over so that I can sell.
Cool.
Because every now and again you will have somebody approach you and say they want to buy the book. Hey, I missed the campaign. I found you here or wherever. So I always do kind of keep that stuff around.
Cool.
All right, I want to just give some feedback and some thoughts on this issue of how do you know if your series is peaked, or thoughts for this. I mean, Travis, you had brought up what you've been seeing in terms of the serialization and pointing to it, and I guess this is sort of like it seems like Patrick's having like a questioning that approach. But do you want to just talk a little bit about more about that, or what's coming to your mind on this?
Yeah. I will say that Kickstarter, I never want to say this out loud because I think it gives people excuses, but Kickstarter is a little harder right now. Things are producing a little bit lower and stuff like that. And I think that the recession is that. So I will say that for your current campaign. And I don't even think it's just money. I also think the same tactics that were used before social media, Twitter, those are being suppressed a lot more than they used to. And I've also been on upswings when those things are open books, right? Things are great. So every one of my posts is getting tons of engagement, stuff like that. So I think that's one. I think one of the things that you said over and over again that is a hard reality to take, Patrick, is, well, I've done it all the same. I don't think any of those campaigns that I talked about has done it all the same. I know like Nightwolf has a marketing team that does a lot of their stuff now. They have people that's promoting them every day as well as what they do. I know that White Ash Charlie tries a brand new custom thing from Viewmasters to coins, something new every campaign. And I think that is a big factor in building that excitement. Oh, what's this new thing? The other thing, I looked at your campaign real quick, and I love your campaigns. I think they look great, but I think a lot of the covers look very, very similar. And I think that could hurt you as well. I think you need to have different styles and stuff to show to try to get a different fan base when what you're doing. They all look like the same art style, probably the art style you like, which is cool, but that's not always what other people like. So then maybe that can help. And then your story will sell the book. Those are things that I see, but I think really the biggest feedback that I have, if you do things the same over and over again, eventually it's going to stop producing fruit. So you've got to change that to get more fruit. And I've seen it myself too, where there's a campaign that my heart wasn't into it, and I can see it in the numbers. I didn't do as many live streams as I wanted because of this, and this in the background, or whatever the case may be. Or I was so worried about the numbers that I didn't get that other variant cover, or I rushed my variant covers. And then when I look at them on the Kickstarter page, I'm like, oh, wow, they all kind of look the same. So there's a lack of interest and a lack of desire to buy those extra covers if they kind of look the same. And I think those are common mistakes that anyone can make. But I know it's very frustrating when you're trying to do this and trying to get to that next level and get it to self-sustaining. But I think a lot of Kickstarter creators, one of the things that they miss is the LCS, getting into that local LCS, because some of those people will find you online and follow you, and they're going to be your bigger supporters, especially in your local communities, because they're like, oh, this is a local guy. We all got to get in on that guy. And that's a huge thing of success that a lot of people ignore. That local guy thing, I want to back him because he's the local guy, helps. That's why every paper produces like local guy does good, blah, blah, blah. And
I will say my local shop, it has not really shown any interest in helping or promoting or doing anything. They're happy to take books on consignment, but it's like, hey, we're not interested. So I have had, that has been a bit of a barrier as far as getting into that local scene.
Where are you based?
I'm near Atlanta.
Okay, cool.
Well, there's a lot of great stores in Atlanta, so I can give you my list of Atlanta. That's really absolutely good. That's not a problem. But the other thing is, when you have that resistance, go, cool, but would you mind if I do a signing? And you don't know the power of that pitch. A lot of my signings, I don't make a ton of money. Today, I made $60 in my signing. It's in Orlando. It takes $40 of gas to get there. But you know what? I got a couple of good pictures. And then hopefully someone looks at me, or a publisher's looking at my Facebook profile. They're like, dude, this guy's signing all over the place. It's an illusion of, it is, I don't want to say it's an illusion of success, because that's not true. Because especially that store backs every one of my Kickstarters and does a whole bunch of stuff. But it's okay to go to a signing and get that picture, because that picture is worth a lot to you, because that means something. When someone sees that on your Kickstarter page, oh, he did a signing at a store, that means he must be slightly bigger than the other guy who doesn't have a picture at the store. Like, all those little things, though they don't matter, will stack up over time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I saw somebody post on Twitter a card that I did, or like a sketch card that I drew from in a signing, and I haven't drawn a sketch card in over a decade. So I'm like, wow, that is an old school thing. But like some of these people that are just like, and they come back Kickstarter after Kickstarter after Kickstarter, but it probably took that in-person contact to make it. So that can last. Look, just to piggyback off of something that Travis was pointing to, and he's mentioned a number of creators that have been serializing, Rob Multari, Charlie Stickney, but even those guys with their Kickstarters or their longer Kickstarters don't necessarily see that linear growth with each one. Like they've had some where like, oh, it's like backer count dipped on this one, but like you did, the overall went up a little bit, that's a great thing that happens as you serialize. And sometimes it's like even the total funding can dip a little bit. One thing that I would say is don't sort of make the decision on your, don't say it's peaked until you also get to the trade, because launching a graphic novel is actually a different category, and a different subcategory on Kickstarter. It brings in a different group of backers. And I think both Charlie and Rob saw big sort of positive momentum for future campaigns after they had that trade, and then launching the next issue after that and after that. So
that was actually my next point. That's where I was going next. I was going to collect those 4 issues into a square bound or possibly a hard. I still have to do all that investigation, but that was the next step I was going to take.
Right, and then from a profit standpoint, the best part about that is you don't have to pay for that art all again. Right.
And that was always kind of the thing is like, get it there. And then that's the one where you could maybe get the ball to roll a little bit better, because it's essentially done, except for a little bit of, maybe some extra cover art or whatever.
Right.
You're kind of down to printing cost and fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't make the judgment call on this is peaked until you get that trade rolled out as well. Michael, did you have anything to add or?
We were talking a little bit about local comic shops, and you sort of exploring those zones to help grow your audience. I think too, obviously Travis said he's going to hit you up with some spots, but I think even beyond the normal comic shops, sometimes indie bookstores, like any kind of like small mom and pop bookshop, I've found comics that I really love that just like were not being presented in the forefront at my comic spots. Sometimes they're down for like any place that is down to take zines. Like sometimes you'll get a little bump from there because people will just be looking at lower production quality things like zines and still be like, whoa, what is this? Somebody did a whole ass comic, and you get to stand out in that venue. So yeah.
Any other thoughts for Patrick?
Yeah. So Patrick, sublimate anything I say. For this is not something I'm super skilled with, but the first kind of thing that came to mind is that it's just way too soon. I don't think you have enough information yet to be thinking or worrying about has it peaked. It doesn't sound like it to me personally. You need a lot more information and some more time to see how that goes, which I think echoes what everyone has said so far. The other thing that came to mind, and if somebody else has more kind of experience with this or opinion on this, I would also love to hear it. But that's have you been educating people on Kickstarter? Because I think Tyler's probably mentioned this many times, like the percentage of people in the world who even know what Kickstarter is still really, really small. Is that right, Tyler? Does that sound pretty accurate? Like it's a tiny little segment of the population who's ever even heard of it. And now you're asking people, it's like, oh, here's another website to give your credit card information to. And people, they back off of that. So I feel like a big piece of our job, I'm finding this, and I think for myself, is not just pitching them the story, it's pitching them Kickstarter, and walking them through that sometimes even if it's making videos where you're holding their hand through this is how you do it. So for what it's worth, yeah, that's kind of what came to mind, but it's way too soon. This is not over by any stretch. I don't think.
I have one more advice, but it's got to be on that muted thing that I was promised before I came on here. Tyler said he will mute and not give this advice that out. So this is you've got it muted, Tyler. Everything's good. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to hear it.
Right. So I'm sure you've heard of BackerKit, and I'm sure you've hesitated away from that because of the additional cost. Am I correct in that assumption?
I used Launch this time around.
Use Launch. Launch is fantastic. That actually is something I wish I knew before, because that actually is an interesting thing. If Launch didn't work for you, did you only do it once? Or did you do it several times in the campaign?
Yeah, I sense, they have their own little time schedule set out, and I went beyond what they
okay. So you sent out one. Okay.
5 or 6 emails through Launch, and sent several emails also through my own email list, which I know some people were importing, which I didn't even know you could really do, import all of your email list into Launch to include it with those contacts that it's able to gather for you.
And you uploaded all 4 of your campaigns?
All 4 of my campaigns were on Launch. They were all connected. Yeah.
So the reason why I bring that up is BackerKit gives you a lot of info, even if you don't use their service. They give you a lot of feedback on returning backers versus users backers. I think those stats are one of the things that you should look at. So is all my backers new? Because, all right, cool. Are they returning backers? Like, what does that stat look like for you as you're kind of at this, what you feel is a plateau?
I think I had something over, I think I was around 34% returning backers for this campaign. Somewhere, I'm going off of memory. Obviously, I have looked at that stat, but I think it was somewhere around there.
Well, and I think that's a thing to look at all of them. You're seeing that, because that may be something that you need to do and tweak in the way you present your information or your writing style to go, all right, how do I retain more readers? What am I not doing? And sometimes it's not even anything to do with your writing style. It's communication, right? I found that when I started my Substack on the regular, one of the things that Tyler teaches you in the class is, hey, do a email list and talk to them all the time when you're not trying to sell them. I was like, no, Tyler, I want to sell to them. I'm just going to do that. But I found that I had more retention on everything when I started having communications, showing them lots of insider stuff. In fact, I make money on Substack. Like I'm not making Donnie Cates money or Scott Snyder money, but I am making a decent people who support me monthly on Substack, which is pretty cool. But it allowed me to do that. And I think that that's something that you may want to look into is those numbers for BackerKit can be invaluable. And I'd love to hear offline, because I know we're running on time here, what your launch numbers were. Like, you spent the $99, how much a return that Launch said you got, because that has been a huge success for me and most people who use it.
Yeah. Last thought that I just had, because this is something you sort of shared in the initial, when you submitted this topic, is that, and it's also related to Tom's topic, is I would be interested in you doing a little research job of just like, what are your project's comps? It's Gauging the Dragon's Tears is your book, right? But I would be curious, like, what are the top 5 all-time series that are in sort of your sort of medieval, it's like medieval sword and sorcery / not safe for work covers, right? Like what and I'd be curious, like, where your series sort of rates and what the ceiling is on that sort of that style thing, because it may be that you're kind of in a genre that like the ceiling isn't as high as it is in other genres, and that you may want to take that into consideration for the next series that you launch, and just see if, hey, okay, the ceiling for this series might be lower than other projects. But I think we're all sort of in agreement, especially because you haven't got the trade out yet, and I know you have more story to tell. And it's also very well done. It's a very attractive book. That like I remember reading the first couple issues. I think I'm a little behind, but story well told, well drawn. It's good stuff. So I hope you'll stick with it. And I think that, if you're still getting new readers every time you launch it, that's a good sign that, there's still a market for this thing. So that'd be my advice.
And I just wanted to add also, have you thought about who your audience really is? Because when I first started writing, I had this one type of reader in mind, but then when I started sharing the artwork on Instagram and TikTok, there were so many other people that was like, oh, this is nice. And I realized, and Tyler says in his program, there are different types of readers, for your story. If it's a family read, then there's parents out there looking for, interesting things to get their children to read, right? And there's a whole cosplay community that will probably be really into something from medieval times, so also focus on who your audience really is. Look at those numbers, look at who those new readers are, where are they coming from, where they hang out, and try to build, organically through that. Of course, Travis mentioned Apple email servers. They all are they want you to pay to play. So they're not going to show your content to a lot of people, but it still doesn't mean that you can't find them. So think about the different people that will buy into your book and hang out there on those platforms.
Yeah. So Patrick, thoughts and takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I think that the idea about different cover styles is probably a good idea to attract some different eyes. And, that's always hard because you're drawn to the artists that draw what you like. So it makes total sense that the covers might be a little bit similar. And also, and it's that's a big hurdle, is to getting involved in in that local scene and kind of trying to get some action in some of the local shops. And again, that's always a difficult thing for me to get in there and go, hey, well, you guys want me to hang out here and sign stuff, don't you? But it definitely seems like something that could have an impact. So those are a couple of the things that stood out.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bringing it up, Patrick. And we hope more people will go and check out your book. All right. I know we're coming up on, we said till 9:30, but guess what? We've got Travis here and we've got to get him some support. So I'm hoping if anyone has to bail out because they have a hard out at 9:30, we will understand. But if the audience is still with us and the creators are still with us, we're love to turn it over to Travis. And Travis, introduce yourself again and share about what you do, and then we'll dive right into your great topic here. You did it again, my friend.
I said if they leave, they won't get to see me eat this Reese's. So, I mean, if that's not reason to stay, I don't know what is. My name is Travis Gibb. I run Orange Cone Productions. We do several different titles, Broke Down 4-Dead Body, Cthulhu Invades Oz, Dog Days, Coins of Judas, Grand State Punk, tons of various stuff. And do you want me to talk about my issue now too, Tyler?
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Yeah. So my biggest hurdle that I'm struggling with right now is I've just gone an audition from, and I set these boundaries to myself, so I'll say that right up front. I've been a Kickstarter creator, and I've been actively staying in that community. I've been trying. I haven't tried to level up to try to do a lot of publishing deals and stuff, and recently that stuff has switched. So now I'm in Diamond and doing Kickstarter, and I'm trying to find a way to leverage my success on Kickstarter because I do a lot on Kickstarter. I'm well known in that market, and the new stuff that's coming in the direct market to try to get me to either work for other publishers, so people hire me as a writer and see that interest of it, because I get a lot of writing gigs, but it's a lot of lateral moves, like people who are on the same level of me who wants me to write stuff, which I think is amazing, and I love the work. I'll write for anybody, but getting that aftershock, hey, can you pitch, or a Mad Cave, or a Black Box, or Image, or hopefully Marvel or DC, right? And then also the other thing is leveraging that. I know that people get into cons as guests, and I think I have a fan base that could warrant that. How do I do that without feeling like a douche and just be like, look, I'm awesome. Like, I'm way better than this guy on your list. He hasn't done anything since 1927, which is probably not accurate. 77, probably, maybe. So that's my issue.
So what are you doing to put yourself in front of those opportunities?
That's a great question. A lot of things is I do a lot of store signings, so I'm at store signings a lot. I do a ton of those. I go to a lot of conventions and booth, so that could be a problem because they may want to not may have the guests because that's one less people paying. For publishers, I don't cold submit. I'm just trying to get my name out there to do stuff and hopefully that'll stuff. Hopefully, when I get some numbers from my my publishing deals, I can do that. But one of the things I've done with my 2 publishing deals that I've had, I sold lots and lots of store exclusives. So I've sold 9 store exclusives for my Band of Bard book, which is Coins of Judas, which is pretty high compared to most books. And then I'm at 6 right now for my Granite State Punk, which comes out in March. So I'm trying to hopefully that'll get me on Whatnots and that'll get me on these channels that are talking about the direct market.
Great. Other questions for Travis?
So again, I'm new to
Sure,
this
yeah.
thing. So if your end goal is to write for the big companies, and when you say big companies, you're saying like Marvel and DC?
Oh yeah. I'm not going to stop until I write for Marvel or DC.
Do you want to write for the comic book side of it or for the film side of it or TV?
Comic side.
The comic side. Okay. Okay.
I'm kind of at a loss. Like, what is the traditional path now to work at a Marvel or DC? Like, is there any known way? Like, people usually do it this way? Like, because I don't know.
It's success. Just making books and being success is the only surefire way that you'll get a shot or even the room where it happens. But like I said, right now they're looking for people outside of this industry, people, new voices. They don't want old white guys like myself.
Where are you located?
Florida.
Florida?
I had a question about I know the goal is obviously a Marvel or a DC, right? And you said you don't cold submit. You've got publishing deals going on. Have you tried proving get involved with some of the smaller ones, something like not even a Dark Horse or an Image, but like an Aftershock or Vaults, places that would probably be really grateful to have your success.
Yeah, I've tried. I mean, Vault's always shutting their doors. They're always not accepting submissions. But Aftershock, from what I understand from Aftershock, is they have to ask you to submit. So they ask you and get that stuff. So every time I see Joe Pruitt, I hand him my stack and keep going. That that's the best way I know is just handing him my books and hopefully my work speaks for itself. And every time I have to give him more and different books. Because my goal is
for me.
What's that?
Joe lives right down the street from me, basically about 10 minutes away.
Nice. I love Joe. I think he's great. I've known him for a long time. And that was my goal when I did comics. I think again, you make a strategy, which I think is part of our problem is we're like, this is the way it's going to work. I'm like, all right, I got to finish this many series. So next year I'll have 5 finished series, like full trade paperback series. Here, like I can do the work. You can trust me to do the work. But maybe, the better strategy would have been to go the White Rush. Let's just write Broke Down and ride it until it dies, and see what we can do. I don't know what that is. And I've also learned that going into the publishing game, even though I'm just kind of stepping my toes in, it's a very different world than Kickstarter, having those hard deadlines, that's why I asked that question earlier about deadlines. When Diamond's like, all right, I need this by this, I need this by the next week. Your publisher's saying I need these separate dates, and then it's going to be printed. And then you've got 30 days to promote to let everyone know about initial orders, and then go on that. It's so crazy, as well as doing Kickstarter at the same time,
Yeah. I guess I'm curious. I've definitely got thoughts on the, getting work, getting hired, getting visible on those radars. But I wanted to touch on the conventions thing. Like, Do you have conventions in mind that you would love to be a guest at?
Yeah, I would love. I'd love to be part of the fan expo circuit. Like I love what they're doing. I'd like Repop too, but that's a little bit harder. But fan expo's right here. I have a good relationship. But I'd love to be in a couple of these circuit ones that are doing the stuff that do multiple cons a year. I'd love to do that.
All right, I want to open the floor for ideas for Travis, and if you had an additional question, you can add that to it. But Tom, you got some thoughts?
Yeah, on the convention aspect, have you pitched panels and ideas, classes, things like that?
I've been part of them. I've been part of panels and stuff, but I've never tried to pitch panels.
Okay, so where I'm from in Phoenix, we have a what used to be Phoenix Comic Con. Now it's Fan Fusion, and I've been there every year for the past decade at least, and every year's gotten better and better. And I've always been a guest, which has been cool. So I haven't had to run into that. You've already purchased tables in the past. That's a really unique wrinkle that hadn't occurred to me before. But even if you still did that, I'm kind of making this up as I go here, but I think if you still did, go ahead and purchase your booth like normal, but then also pitched, 5 or 6 different either panels or classes you could teach, anything like that. For me, that's really been my bread and butter there. Like I get in front of a group, preferably by myself, and teach, writing. I teach dialogue, I teach description, I teach, whatever, for 45 minutes, and then those people end up at my table, kind of thing. And I would start there, like putting together what you think might attract, like something that's unique to you, or something that you could speak confidently on, or with some other people on. Maybe you put a group of creators together to do it and pitch that as a way to open that door to get that guest badge. I think might be one way to start.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. I think that's a great idea, and something that has worked for me. I believe that most people probably think that most guests are invited, where I believe most guests actually initiate the invitation by making an offer, and and making a compelling offer to the project managers by talking about how you've been to the show in the past, you would love to be a guest, and in exchange for what you'd hope to get, because like some people, when they say the guest, they mean we want to be flown there, we want to do this thing, and so like usually when I ask to be a guest, I'm just asking for a table, and so I actually make that clear, and in exchange for that, I'm willing to and panel and share with my email list of X number of people that I'll be being there, and doing a live, 3 live streams from the thing to my X number of social, like make a compelling case of why they should pick you over someone. I mean, you don't have to say why over someone else that you have. You don't have to down talk.
Don't name them out.
Yeah. Don't, like I won't sleep at my table like I caught so-and-so last year. But yeah, you actually make the compelling pitch of like, yeah, of course we want this guy. And most creators, I think, oh, that's too pushy, or that's not how it's done. But most of the guests that I know that get guests actually go say, hey, make me a guest, invite me. So if you were waiting for an invitation, stop waiting for an invitation and make a proposal.
This is probably not a worthy thing, but it seems like maybe a lot of the stuff getting in with the publishers is about forming the relationships. And I have somebody that was a editor-in-chief at one of those smaller companies who edits on the side. And so I pay that guy an editing fee to go over my work. And I mean, I haven't tried to use that in any way, but somebody that's an editor-in-chief knows my name, answers my emails, and is familiar with my work. And maybe that's a relationship I'm building that might turn into something down the road. So I don't know if there's like a backdoor type of a situation like that might be worth pursuing or not.
No, it's good thinking.
Also, Travis, have you thought about, because you keep, I know, and I like that you're saying it, but you're saying they're looking for new, Marvel DC's looking for new voices outside of the comic book veteran community. But you still have a great story. Like you tell great stories, obviously, because you've been very successful on Kickstarter. So have you thought about how to stand out, and because you're saying two different extremes, like the comic book noobs and like me, and having these voices, and I'm of color and I'm a woman. And then you said, then there's people like me who, been in the comic book, but there's also people in the middle there. Have you thought about how to kind of move away from that comic book veteran? I've been reading comic books for 30 years and I know every plot line.
Sure.
Have you thought about how to move away from that and market yourself as someone who's adaptable and, not hardcore, like this has to be this way? But have you thought about how to brand yourself in that way, so when you have these conversations, you don't come off like, and I don't think you're coming off like that at all, but you're saying you come off like
Sure.
that. So that's why I'm saying it. So have you thought about how to move away from that perception of you and present yourself in a more neutral way? Because I feel like Marvel and DC need someone like you actually now, because Kevin is over the comic book division now, and so now they're trying to change a lot of the older storylines to fit what they're trying to do with the movies. So I feel like there is room for you, but have you thought about how to move away from that perception you have of yourself and make yourself more marketable?
It's interesting. It's a test. I think there's a lot of value for someone who I think there is value in both. Just like you said, there's value in someone who knows as much as I do and knows a lot about the industry. And I do think sometimes it can even come off as arrogant. But it's also, I do things very differently because I'm a fan first, then a writer, leaving them a writer. Like when I go to convention and I'm with my peers, a lot of us are going out to eat and they're trying to do some stuff. And I'm going to hang out with some of the Marvel and DC guys because that's where I want to be. Right. So I'll hang out there because that's my goal. And a lot of my peers, that's not their goal at all. They have zero. They're just, I want to do my art. I want to do my stuff. And I think that that's actually one of the things that makes me unique, is that ability to do that. Because I find myself being one of the few who do that. Because everyone's just like, oh, I can go have dinner with the scout guy. Well, I know that guy's at 3 other conventions, but this and this creator is doing this dinner like that I could go to at the same time, learn and try to figure out those things. But I do absolutely see what you're saying and trying to rebrand part of what I do to be more marketable to those is tough. But I also think it's just getting the work up there. I just started the direct market. I think that's going to be a big ability to go, here's what I can sell in the direct market. Imagine if I had a marketing budget, right? Imagine if I had a marketing person behind me besides a small independent publisher.
Do you mind if I ask what, like a no BS kind of way, what is the motive for wanting to be with those publishers?
It's just what I want. It's just who I want to work for. It's not that I'm not going to do independent stuff. It's just, it's always been one of my dreams. And if I'm going to do it, that's the top. And I don't need, like, I don't expect, like, even you wrote actual issues of Spawn, right? You didn't write in the backup stories, right? Like, I'm happy with a 4-page backup in the Halloween special that nobody bought, right? Like, I'm not saying like I need to be David Pepos who's writing Savage Avengers. I don't need that. That's not I don't care about that. Like, I need to be able to say I wrote Spider-Man one day, right? Like, I don't care if nobody read it, if it was in the IDW, card. Like, it's okay. That's just a goal for me. And I think it's a good drive for me. I think it's one of the drives that helped me work a little harder, and why I have so many Kickstarters and why I have that stuff is like, I'm not going to get there without producing work. That I know. That's the only thing I know 100%. But I've watched everyone's pattern. Everyone has a different strategy. Some people go Aftershock straight there. Some people never hit Aftershock. They wrote 2 novels, they got there. They wrote a movie, got there, So I think that those are things that drive me and help me be more successful, because I know the only thing I know is producing good work will get you there.
Yes.
Yeah, and speaking to that, there's a couple of creators that I've been close with that are now having those doors sort of open to them, and that's happened over the past couple of years, and a lot of that has coincided with them both doing really good work for whatever publishers they could get or self-published, but then also being far more proactive in terms of making sure that they are putting the work that they're doing in front of the people that they want to work with. And for many years, one of the writers just was not refused to do that. And it wasn't until like a pre-pandemic bet from one of our other guys who's just like, you should be writing this stuff. You're that good. I'll if you don't get an offer from one of these publishers to do something in a year, after every single month to every single editor that you'd like to work with, you send them something that you're working that you've finished recently or you've done recently, and just stay top of mind. I'll pay you $500. And he's like, $500? Sure. Okay, fine. I'll do it. And wouldn't you know it, like 6 months in, like people are like, yeah, this is really, oh yeah, I finally got around to reading this. I finally, like, just that sort of steady drumbeat of staying on the radar really did move the needle. And I know a lot of creators kind of don't want to do that or feel awkward about it. And so it's about how you can do it with a light enough touch, but also you stay top of mind to these really busy, insanely busy people that have a lot of people that want to work for them. But to stay top of mind, you got to stay top of mind. You got to keep those connections going, and also be targeted with it, in that, like, no one pitches to DC, right? You pitch to somebody at DC that thinks you might be able to do the job. And so, it's sort of a persistence thing and a targeted thing of who am I actually interested in specifically, like what editors, what assistant editors, what and so there's that. And then I also like what Patrick brought up is getting in the doors of publishers. It really helps if you're partnering with an artist that they've already published, or they already work with, and so that can be a way to open more doors than you might otherwise on your own. Any other thoughts for Travis?
Yeah, are you Travis, are you on social media?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I live on social media.
so you can use your platforms to, when you have something you really want to, speak in that voice that you want to work with, right? So, tagging, even though Marvel, that one person may not read, see that post, but maybe a month or two down the road, if you keep tagging certain titles and tagging with your hashtags and doing all that good stuff, someone will see your work, and someone like, oh wow, he's speaking the way that we like, our writers just to speak, because it's very sensitive topics now in the comic book world that people are trying to I don't really know how to phrase it, but there's a lot of new storylines that they want writers for, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you show that you're interested in those topics without compromising who you are, I think that, and then adding your own Travis sazon or seasoning to it, that's what we say in Spanish, sazon. I think that one person, that, just like Tyler said, that one person might say, hey, would you be interested in writing for this special upcoming issue we have for, the Halloween special? I don't know. So, talk like that on social too, like bring them into your social community, show them that you do have a community, you're marketable. You're not just a comic book hardcore fan that can't talk about other things and view things other ways. So use your social too.
Yeah, you're right on my wavelength. I just started this year a comic book level up, and it's 100% people who have got to that next level that I want to get to, and I talk about their career and how they got there, because I find a lot of the podcasts that people are on or do are really just about their newest things. I really want to get to the grounds and talk about these people and use my unique skill of I love comics. So let me talk about you and what I know about you and what you've created, because I probably know it, and like really do that. But then also ask for these strategies. What worked for you? How did you get to that next level, or where you went?
I got one more question for you, and it's just that I feel like you've obviously got this incredible breadth of ideas, and you've got these cool contacts, and it seems to me like it should be an easy thing to connect, where like you said in your experience, it's like, oh, well, they have to ask you if you'd like to work with them on this or that. That hasn't been I haven't put out as much work as you, but that hasn't been my experience in sort of talking to these other publishers. I feel like what I've seen work best, my closes, the places I've gotten close, the places I've seen friends have success, it's because you've got these contacts and you've got a new idea, something separate from the work you've done in the crowdfunding space, and you come to them like, hey, this is the idea I have. I would love to do it with you. I would love to do it with so-and-so publisher. If you know an editor personally, I would love to do it with you as an editor. I think everybody has said, varying degrees of like, oh, put yourself out there. You got to stay at the top. And this is all sort of a culmination of that. But I think like the is collect the nose, right? Like just put it down as a tight pitch. Some places want the art, just like reach out to somebody, pay to have those like 4 or 5 pages of art done, or whatever the pitch is, whatever they expect for that particular house, and just like have it hip pocketed so you can start hitting these places up like, hey, this is what I'm excited. This is the new idea I'm excited about. I don't want to do it on my other channels. I don't want to do it direct market. I want to do it with you guys because I know you guys are the right place for it, if that makes sense.
No, that's it's really good advice. I think I get my own head because I do the math, right? All right, so I got to pay for this 5 pages or a full issue to get it done. To if I just launch it on Kickstarter tomorrow, I could make blank. Versus waiting for this could help my career, but also what if it doesn't? Because I look at, out of the 20 people who go to Vault every year, one goes click to Boom or somewhere else. And how to look at it. It's trying to figure out that math strategic, because I know a lot of people think with how many Kickstarters and stuff I produce that I have a very good budget for all these things, but I do not. It's a very tight budget that I manage very well and make very good contacts that go, hey, you like me, right? Give me a discount.
But you still have plenty of capital in that, like you are a name in Kickstarter. And so if you find another name artist and it's like, hey, this is like whatever you want to work out between them, where it's like, I can give you this up front, but also like, we'd own the property 50-50. We'd own the property. However, like this would be our idea, and they can go in on it that way if it's a budget thing. But I do know some of the spots do take just like straight. They want to pair you with an artist,
right? And
so I'll find I like to pursue those straight. You just got to put down just words,
right?
Yeah.
Well, all right, Travis, pretty good discussion here on this. What, any new actions you're going to take as a result?
Yeah, I think I really I don't like to do it, but I think I really need to make that email list for both conventions and publishers, and just get in contact and try to build those relationships. It's hard because I like to build personal relationships. I don't like to cold call. It's not my best thing, but I think like if I want to get past where I'm at, I'm gonna have to do that, right? Maybe wait a little bit to get some numbers back on my stuff because that helps. But beyond that, I think I really got to start getting that list and who I want to work with, and what are reasonable, because I think I'm pretty good at strategizing too of who would be a good fit for me, because I think a lot of people just cold message, hey, I'm going to message Spider-Man guy. Well, that's probably probably not the best. Why don't you hit supernatural part of Marvel, which is like Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, right? He's only got 2 books. Maybe he can fit you in.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, Travis. And again,
Thank you.
congrats on having the success to be looking for cool ways to build upon. I love it.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everyone here for producing a great mastermind session. We had a lot of great topics tonight. In a second, I'm going to ask just for everyone's top takeaway. But I did also want to just remind anyone that is watching that if you are interested in joining a mastermind group and having discussions like these built into your calendar so that you're working on your business at least once a month, I encourage you to check out the ComixLaunch Mastermind. We will be doing a live info session with me, just going over the program, what's involved, who's it right for, how we run things. That'll be on Tuesday, December 13th at 3 p.m. Replay will be available. If you want to make sure that you get access to that, just go to comixlaunch.com/mastermind, get on our interest list, and we will be letting you know everything there is to know about it and whether or not you want to jump into a ComixLaunch Mastermind group in 2023. All right. I want to wrap up by just getting everyone's top takeaway from the evening, and also just a little preview of what you personally have coming up next and where people can follow your work going forward. So Karla began. Let's start with her once more. Top takeaway from tonight, Karla.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for all the good advice. But the biggest takeaway I had was that I do have a place here among some really great, awesome creators. And I also was very surprised to see the levels of success you all have had. And success doesn't necessarily equate to the big dollars. It equates to the respect and authority that you have. So that's my key takeaway. In order to, if you want to check out my Kickstarter, it's called Luna, The Awakening. Or you can catch me on Instagram. My IG handle is Stories with Moon. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Karla. I want to jump over to Michael.
Yo, I guess I would say my top takeaway for the evening would be, one, having clarity of expectation, right? I think where that's in summation for my discussion, like clarity of expectations, not only with your collaborators, but also with yourself, what your expectations are if you are trying to make this a full-time job for yourself. The other thing I was going to say is, follow me on Yo Michael Dean. That's my main handle for Twitter, Instagram. YoMichaelDean.com is also where you can get my original graphic novel Mariner. And if you're interested in sci-fi podcasts, Hollow Public Radio is a 9-part comedy sci-fi scripted series. So check any of that out.
Awesome.
And look
Michael.
out for more things next year. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, Michael. Thank you. Let's jump over to Tom. Top takeaway from tonight, Tom.
I think my top takeaway from tonight is just that, from what I've heard from everybody, is you have to do what you love. You have to do that thing that sets your hair on fire and pursue that kind of above everything else. There's a lot of different considerations we have to take because we do wear different hats. We are business owners, we are entrepreneurs, we are artists and writers, and all these different things that we have to be in order to move forward. But ultimately, if we're not loving it, like why did we want to get out of that cubicle job to do this? That doesn't make any sense. So I think that's my main takeaway. I think everything I have on Kickstarter is still available for direct purchase. So as long as you're spelling right there, as long as you're spelling my last name right, you can find me across pretty much any social media. I'm probably most active on Twitter and Instagram right now, but you can also find me on Kickstarter and buy my comic or the books that I have out there.
Thank you, Tom. And Patrick.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is the same one I always take away, which is got to keep pushing forward outside of the comfort zone and trying to get in front of more people with the project. And people looking for me can find me as my name reads, Patrick Kellner on Facebook, or West of the Sun Comics on Facebook.
Awesome. And Travis, bring us home.
Yeah, you can find me at travisgibb.substack.com. That'll get you to all my other stuff and tell you what's going on and all my things. I post there first, and then I go to the other social medias. But most of it's under my name. The biggest thing that you can do for me is my first published work, full comic, is Coins of Judas. It's a 2-issue miniseries. So it'd be $10 total. The 2 $5 issues. If you can go to your local comic store and order a copy, that would be awesome. That would really help me out and help get me to where I need to go. And that's what I'm pushing for beginning of the year, to have a big success with my newest book, Coins of Judas, which has never been on Kickstarter, which I think is kind of cool. It's the first direct market book.
Yeah. And just top overall takeaway from tonight?
Oh, my top is it doesn't matter what level you are. We all are. Everything that we talked about tonight is a level of imposter syndrome, right? It's all different of whether or not we can make it where we're at, whether or not we have the authority to get our artists to bring it up, whether or not we have the authority to write what we love. It's all imposter syndrome. And I think that those are the easiest things to overcome, which is great. I know it doesn't seem like it can, but those are the things that we've already, just by being here, have proven that we can move beyond that. So I think it's just taking the right steps to get to where we need to go.
Awesome and well said by everyone. I really appreciate you all for your bravery to come on here, show your faces, get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, hopefully connect with a few new souls and fellow creators on this similar journey as you, and bear a little bit about the stuff that's on your mind, the challenges that you're going through, and then also be there for one another. I think one of the best things about the comic book community and the comic book Kickstarter community, and one of the reasons why we have more success on Kickstarter from a funding standpoint and a success rate standpoint than any other category, is that we are truly a community, and we help each other out and we pull each other up, and we give back. And so I appreciate all of you sharing your insight here on the podcast, which it will be on the podcast going forward. And then I also want to thank everyone that tuned in and watched live and left awesome comments. Thank you for sharing your insights as well, and we'll follow up with everyone there. We'll make sure that there's links to everything as a follow-up with this. And I encourage anyone interested in more masterminding in their life, go over to ComixLaunch.com/mastermind to find out more about what we do with the Comics Launch Mastermind. With that, everyone, have a great night. Thank you for watching, and we can't wait to see what you all launch next. Take care, everybody.